Good morning, distinguished delegates and participants of the meeting. Could you kindly take your seats as we seek to embark on starting the meeting in 1 minute? Thank you. Good morning again, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We apologize for being late. So, distinguished delegates, participants, good morning. I am Chantal Wellington from Barbados. On behalf of my distinguished co-chair, Ms. Annie Gabriel from Australia, I would like to welcome you to the 47th meeting of the Open-Ended Working Group of the Parties to the Montreal Protocol. Welcome to Bangkok. Welcome back to Bangkok. Again, I have grown very fond of this country. It is one where we see that the culture of this great nation and this city, as well as its tradition, has been combined with modernization, and it is something that I truly admire. I also admire that the welcoming smiles of the persons not only are seen as a gesture of friendship, but also as a sign of gratitude, respect, and hospitality. At this time, I take this opportunity to express our appreciation to the government and people of Thailand for the warm welcome and hospitality that has been extended to us. I also wish to thank the team of the Ozone Secretariat for the excellent preparation and organization of this meeting. This morning, we are joined by Ms. Dechen Cheering, Director of the United Nations Environment Program's Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. Madam Director, thank you for taking the time to join the opening of OEWG47. I would now like to invite you to the podium to deliver your welcome address to us. Madam Director, you have the floor.
Distinguished delegates of the parties to the Montreal Protocol on Substances that Deplete the Ozone Layer, co-chairs of the 47th meeting of the Open-Ended Working Group, Ms. Annie Gabrielle and Ms. Chantal Wellington, Ms. Megumi Seki, Executive Secretary of the Ozone Secretariat, Ms. Tina Bumpili, Chief Officer of the Multilateral Fund Secretariat, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege to welcome you all, and I'm delighted that we're gathered here again in Bangkok as a global community committed to safeguarding the ozone layer. The Montreal Protocol stands as a beacon of what science-based, consensus-driven multilateralism can achieve. I commend the 163 parties that have ratified the Kigali Amendment and encourage the remaining parties to do so with the aim of achieving universal ratification by 2026, the 10th anniversary of this landmark agreement. We've made remarkable progress in phasing out chlorofluorocarbons and hydrochlorofluorocarbons, gaining invaluable experience and lessons along the way. Yet much work remains, especially as we embark on the initial phase of the hydrofluorocarbon phase down for Article 5 Group 1 parties. The agenda before you includes a study on the replenishment of the Multilateral Fund for 2027-2029, advancing life cycle refrigerant management, strengthening regional atmospheric monitoring of controlled substances, and strengthening the Montreal Protocol institutions. This meeting will consider the need to maintain the annual average of 2.5% for HCFCs for servicing and non-servicing applications between 2030 and 2040, provided for in Article 5. In his message for the 2024 World Ozone Day, the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, reminded us that by uniting the world to phase out the consumption and production of ozone-depleting substances, the protocol has protected nature, public health, and prevented significant economic losses. As we embark this year on the 40th anniversary of the Vienna Convention for the Protection of the Ozone Layer, it is a moment to reflect on what we have achieved together. Our success lies in united action, universal membership to the ozone treaties to achieve results, right science, and an agreement on finance, technology, and capacity building through the Multilateral Fund to reconcile nations' different needs and to act as one on a global challenge and results that keep countries motivated to achieve more. I thank you for your kind attention and I wish you a very successful meeting.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chering, for your statements, which continue to highlight the good work that we've been doing within the Montreal Protocol sphere. I now invite the Executive Secretary of the Ozone Secretariat, Ms. Meg Seki, to make her statement. Ms. Seki, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Dear delegates, colleagues, and friends, welcome back to Bangkok. And thank you, Dechen, for your warm welcome and being with us again this time. I'm sure you will all agree that it's always a pleasure to come to Thailand and to be among wonderful Thai people and culture, and to be at this venue where the UNCC SCAP colleagues always support us and service us in the most efficient, effective, and thoughtful ways that make our meetings smooth and successful. This is very highly appreciated by both the Secretariat and the participants. I would like to start my statement by honoring some incredible members of the ozone family that we sadly lost this year, who were with us since the 1990s. Many of you will remember Professor Janusz Kosakiewicz for his in-depth knowledge, vast experience, and professionalism. He participated at Montreal Protocol meetings with many of you for more than 3 decades, playing key roles as a rapporteur for the sixth MOP and the 11th MOP in 1994 and 1999, as OEWG co-chair in 2004, as a member of the Implementation Committee for many years, and its vice president in 2012 and president in 2013. In recognition of these many contributions and his service over the years, he received the 20th anniversary Montreal Protocol Outstanding Contributions Award for the Secretariat in 2007. Dr. Satyendra Kumar Purkayastha spent more than 26 years in the implementation of the Montreal Protocol in Bangladesh. Thanks to his commitment, leadership, and technical skills, the country made strong progress in phasing out ozone-depleting substances and meeting its implementation obligations. He also played an important role in Bangladesh's ratification and early implementation of the Kigali Amendment. He will be remembered for his quiet intellect, unassuming nature, and strong dedication to the Montreal Protocol. Very recently, we were sad to also hear of the passing of Professor Xiaoyan Tang, As a long-serving co-chair of the Environmental Effects Assessment Panel from 1993 to 2012, she oversaw the 5 quadrennial assessment reports, as well as several progress reports and the launch of the first frequently asked questions of EEAP in 2010. As early as 1991, Professor Tang led the preparation of China's country program for the implementation of the protocol and contributed to science relating to the ozone layer. Among her many accomplishments, she was also a highly respected educator for over 70 years in the fields of environmental science and atmospheric science. In recognition of her services, she received the 20th Vienna Convention Anniversary Commemorative Award in 2005. Let us take a moment to remember them and reflect on their contributions to the success of the ozone treaties. Thank you. Dear delegates, this year we are commemorating the 40th anniversary of the Vienna Convention. As we celebrate this anniversary, it is worth remembering what has made the Vienna Convention an unprecedented success in protecting the global environment and why it is more relevant than ever. In the face of a potential environmental catastrophe, the world took decisive action despite scientific uncertainty. This precautionary approach led to the adoption of the Convention in 1985, which laid the groundwork for the Montreal Protocol adopted 2 years later in 1987. To mark the occasion of the Convention's anniversary, the Secretariat has commissioned a short documentary. A mini trailer will be played in the plenary hall during the lunch breaks of this meeting, but the premiere screening of the full documentary will be at the 37th meeting of the parties, which will be held in Nairobi later this year. Now, decades on, the 2 ozone treaties are as agile as ever. Most recently, here in Bangkok, you agreed on groundbreaking decisions on enhancing atmospheric monitoring of substances controlled under the protocol, linking the convention and the protocol to strengthen their implementation, a testament to their continued relevance and importance in keeping the ozone layer on its recovery path. Dear delegates, several meetings have already taken place in the last few days. The Implementation Committee met over the weekend in a 2 full-day meeting, which is like a record-long meeting in the recent years, reviewed non-compliance issues, approved HFC baseline revisions for 7 parties, concluded the discussion on provisional data, and began to discuss systemic non-compliance, an issue that will be discussed again in the 75th meeting of the committee, as well as in the one-day informal meeting to be convened just before the MOP later this year. The South Asia Regional Network of Ozone Officers under the Ozone Action Program of UNEP took place over the last 3 days. A workshop on life cycle refrigerant management convened by the CCAC, Climate Clean Air Coalition, reviewed progress on development of banks inventories and related national action plans. Many of these issues addressed in the meetings will be relevant to the discussions at this OEWG. Some key issues on the agenda of the OEWG include the following: the work on developing the terms of reference for the study on the 2027 to 29 replenishment of the multilateral fund begins. TEEP is already preparing itself, doing some groundwork for carrying out the study next year, including on making the TEEP's models for the analysis more transparent and accessible to the parties. As usual, TEEP will present its 2025 progress report at this meeting, which includes the reports of the technical options committees and updates on MDIs, PFAS, and life cycle refrigerant management, as well as its recommendations on restructuring to enable parties to continue informed conversations on several of these important issues. You will hear updates from the Secretariat and the Advisory Committee of the Vienna Convention's General Trust Fund on work that has begun on Decision 36.1 on atmospheric monitoring of controlled substances. The Secretariat, with a co-chair and a new member of the Advisory Committee, will present to you an update on the progress. Parties will also review the 2.5% HCFC tail for Article 5 parties, continue the discussions on feedstock and the strengthening of the Montreal Protocol's institutions, as well as consider the issue of classifying Palestine as an Article 5 party. Delegates, as you will recall, last year's combined COP and MOP was a very busy one. We had 15 contact and informal groups, and the parties adopted 27 decisions in total. In response, many of these decisions requested parties to submit information voluntarily on several issues. And in response to the requests by the parties to the Secretariats on those decisions, we have so far produced the following: an online compilation on LRM, life cycle refrigerant management, a meeting document collating and summarizing the feedstock information, a compendium on VSLS, an update of the document on common features of licensing systems, a compilation of the best practices to prevent illegal trade, and analysis of systemic issues related to compliance. They are available as meeting documents for this meeting or as digital resources on our website under additional reported information. In addition, we have also received submissions on restrictions on import of products and equipment containing controlled substances and energy efficiency requirements, which have been posted on the Secretariat website. We also received submissions on HFC 23 on methodologies for estimating emissions and on best practices to reduce emissions, which have been forwarded to the SAP and the TEEP for reports that they are preparing for consideration by the parties at the MOP this year. So thank you very much to the parties for all these contributions. Should parties wish, the deadlines for submitting information could be extended, especially for the digital resources, which the Secretariat will be happy to update as we receive more information. These submissions will also be useful, of course, for the SAP and TEEP for their quadrennial assessments. Delegates, it's going to be another busy week with much to discuss. I wish you productive and fruitful discussions that will lay the ground for the important discussions and decisions to be adopted by MOP 37. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Executive Secretary, for, first of all, honoring those members of our Montreal Protocol family who have passed this year. We are truly thankful for their contributions and their service to us as a Montreal Protocol body. I also wish to thank you for your encouraging statements and reminding us about the importance of the work we do under the Vienna Convention and the Montreal Protocol. We also wish to thank you for highlighting some of the key issues that we are to discuss in this upcoming meeting, and to thank you for the support you've provided and your response to our requests as parties in terms of the work that we have put forward to you. At this time, before I turn over to the next agenda item, I would like to give Ms. Chering the opportunity to leave the plenary to attend to other important matters. So thank you once again, Director, for joining us at this meeting. Thank you. And now hand over to my co-chair, Annie, to introduce the next agenda item.
Thank you very much, Chantal, and my thanks also for the opening statements, which I think were very, very useful and a nice summary of where we've been and where we need to get to. So thank you very much. Let's turn now to agenda item 2, which is organisational matters, and agenda item 2A, which is the adoption of the agenda. The provisional agenda is contained in document 47/1, and the annotated agenda is in document 47/1, add 1. You can access all the reference documents for each agenda item from the annotated agenda. I would now like to see if any delegates wish to make any changes to the provisional agenda. Under agenda item 4D on any other issues related to the TEEP progress report, parties may wish to add any issues of importance from the TEEP progress report that they think should be considered or discussed at this meeting that are not otherwise covered on the agenda. So this is the opportunity, if there's an issue that's not on the agenda and there's something in the TEEP report that you would like to discuss, please make that known during this session. Under item 11 on other matters, parties may wish to raise any other matters that they think that should be discussed at this meeting. Just before I open the floor, and I see I have a couple of delegations wishing to take the floor already, I would like to suggest under agenda item 4D the inclusion of the issue TEEP membership changes. This issue is normally included on the agenda of the OEWG, however it was an omission this time around. There is information in the TEEP's progress report, and the addendum provides information on the TEEP members whose terms expire at the end of 2025, and a MOP decision will be needed for appointment or reappointment of members. So we will start our consideration at this meeting if that's agreeable to the parties. So I now open the floor for delegations wishing to take the floor in relation to the proposed agenda. First on my list, I have Australia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. As this is the first time this delegation has taken the floor, we would like to acknowledge the warm welcome from the government and the people of Thailand and the work of the Ozone Secretariat in the organisation and preparations for this meeting. Australia would like to thank the TEEP for the update report provided under Agenda Item 4 and notes with concern the information provided by the Fire Suppression Technical Options Committee in relation to the potential extended use of HALO 1301 in new aircraft designs, the uncertainty about the future availability of alternatives and additional strain this will place on future availability. We note more broadly that issues of regulatory uncertainty affecting other fire suppressant agents are also raised in this report. Accordingly, we would like to place the issue of availability of Halon 1301 in the aviation sector and the management of other controlled substances for fire suppression on the agenda under item 4D for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Australia. That is noted. EU, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Let me start with thanking the government of Thailand and the people of Thailand for hosting the meeting. I wanted to say good luck to the co-chairs, and we're looking forward to work with you. And thanks for the Secretariat for the excellent organization. Of course, also a big thanks to TIAP for their progress report. Nevertheless, we have a number of topics we would like to add to the agenda under point 4D. We would agree with the intervention of Australia that it's interesting to discuss halons. Additionally to that, we would also like to discuss VSLS, including allowing an exchange on submissions made since on this topic. Finally, regarding the issue of PFAS, we would like to have a moment with you to discuss how policies that impact PFAS are represented in the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, EU. I take note of your proposals. United States, followed by Egypt. United States, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. Just a thanks to both of our co-chairs for guiding us through this meeting, and congratulations on your election. Also a thanks to the government of Thailand for hosting us here, and to the Secretariat for all the work you have put in to prepare delegates for this meeting. Just a couple of comments. I think firstly, just to say that on agenda item 4D, just to say, express our agreement with the intervention that was made by Australia. But to say that we view that agenda item in the broader context of fire suppression agents. Under agenda item 10, to indicate we intend to reiterate points we have made in previous sessions regarding changes to the list of Article 5 countries. And then finally, just to note, I think other delegates have a number of times in the past heard us raise the issue of HFC 23. That continues to be an important issue to us. We considered adding it to the agenda, but in the interest of efficiency and knowing that issue will actually come up at the MOP, we will not do so at this time, but just to express our continued interest and looking forward to the discussion at the MOP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, United States. Your comments are noted. I turn now to Egypt. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. Respective delegates, good morning, everyone. This delegate wished to start by thanking the government and the people of Thailand for hosting this meeting in the lovely city, Bangkok. Let me also add my voice to those who congratulated both co-chair for this meeting, and we're happy to cooperate and wish you all the best. We would like to extend double thanks to the Ozone Secretariat. Firstly, for facilitating our meeting, for good arranging and preparing all the document, and for all their help. Secondly, for putting in the agenda of this meeting under agenda item 9, the issues that Egypt put forward for consideration at the last year in the 36th MOB regarding challenges associated with the cutoff date for eligible capacity indicated in paragraph 17 of decision 28/2. Madam Co-Chair, while the challenges remain, we noted with appreciation the very good progress achieved since last MOB by the Executive Committee of the Multilateral Fund in relation to conclude the HFC's phase down cost guidelines, as well an energy efficiency operational framework where Egypt, so as many other Article 5 countries, started receiving adequate funding in relation to meet its Kigali commitment. We also note several flexibilities offered in many of the funding arrangements adopted by the Executive Committee and in line with the decision 28/2. Accordingly, Egypt will be re-examining the remaining challenges associated with the funding eligibility within the mentioned progress and conduct further discussion with interested member state operated under Article 5 of Montreal Protocol. As for now, we would like to remove the agenda item 9 from this meeting, minding that based on the further discussion with interested member state operated under Article 5 of the protocol, Egypt may come back with a revised version of the previous CRP in the next meeting. With this, I thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you very much, Ebert, for those observations. On my list now, I have Rwanda and China. If any other delegations wish to make any other observations in relation to the agenda, please put forward please press your button now. I pass the floor now to Rwanda.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Since this is the first time my delegation is taking the floor, I would first like to thank the Ozone Secretariat for the excellent preparation of this meeting and the government of Thailand for welcoming us to this beautiful city of Bangkok. We want to propose something under item number 11, other matters. Rwanda not only hosted the Kigali Amendment negotiations, but also became one of the first countries to ratify and implement it in May 2017, shortly after its adoption in 2016, October. Since the Rwanda has continued to serve as a leader on the transition to natural and low global warming refrigerants. To this end, we developed the award-winning Rwanda Cooling Initiative, we call it ARACOOL, in 2018 to holistically transition the country towards more sustainable cooling solutions in building agriculture and medical sector. ARACOOL continues to serve as a model for other countries aiming to meet the Kigali commitments. In 2020, the government of Rwanda also began a successful partnership with the UK to design and develop the African Center of Excellence for Sustainable Cooling and Cold Chains, ACES, building out from a core delivery mechanism under ARACOOL. 5 years later, activities at ACES have transitioned from the design and development of core facilities, tool, training and content to ramped up implementation. This includes delivering training courses, demonstration, testing and rollout of activities through the Clean Cooling Network, CCN, which serves as the umbrella brand. We, at the ACES flagship hub in Kigali, we have opened the refrigeration training center and solar lab. We are in full construction of the cutting-edge environmental test center and variable temperature rooms and lab to enable research and testing in Africa for Africa. We are already offering more than 20 training courses with more in development. We average more than 200 students a month at the ACES campus in Kigali. In-person training will be underpinned this summer by a full online learning and management system for blended and online learning. This center also is in process of accreditation with the Rwanda Ministry of Education for both continuous professional development, but also to award degrees. At EXCOM, there have been many discussions about the role of regional specialized centers of excellence in serving different countries and regions, and discussions on how it can be designed to provide sustained ongoing technical support for the implementation of activities to phase down HFCs and enhance energy efficiency. We believe these specialized centers of excellence have key role to play in helping to address a range of capacity building and technology adoption activities. They can be complementary to and coordinated with support provided under KIPs and HPMPs. Over the time, they have the potential to become knowledge centers to support national and regional priorities and initiatives for inclusive and resilient cooling and cold chains. However, we believe it's important to better understand the possible roles for these specialized centers of excellences and to share information and experience on strategies, policies, and activities of existing regional centers of excellence and their approaches to promote sustainable cooling so that we can explore the potential for enhanced cooperation and support. Through ACES, we have designed and developed a first-of-kind holistic approach to the challenge of cold chain for developing market through this specialized center and a hub and spoke model, creating the design toolkits and business models to support the approach through a replicable model, which continues to be tested and validated. So we believe that there is an exciting opportunity to collaborate and for enhanced cooperation to scale up and roll out the reference approach and blueprint the ACES has created and implemented. We therefore like to present a draft CRP at this meeting that launches further consideration of the different strategies, policies, and activities and national and regional initiatives to support implementation of the Kigali Amendment. We would be happy to introduce a CRP in more details at the relevant time. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
The last country on my list is China. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the first intervention of the Chinese delegation at this working group meeting. First, we would like to express our sincere appreciation to the Ozone Secretariat for their hard work in preparing for this meeting, and also to the government of Thailand for its thoughtful arrangements. As Executive Secretary, Ms. Seki noted, this year marks the 40th anniversary of the Vienna Convention for the protection of the ozone layer under the Montreal Protocol, under which the Montreal Protocol is recognized as the most successful multilateral environmental treaty. This success would not have been possible without the close cooperation of all parties, particularly the sustained and dedicated efforts made by developing countries over the past 40 years. One of the keys to these hard-won achievements is the recognition of the special situation of developing countries under Article 5 of the protocol. China notes that there are many technical issues that remain to be discussed at this meeting. We look forward to work with all parties to focus on these substantive issues and to resolve the practical difficulties countries face in implementing the protocol, rather than veering off course to debate the reclassification of developing countries under Article 5. Thank you.
Thank you very much, China, for your comment. If there are no other delegations wishing to take the floor, I'll just provide a brief summary of the proposed revised agenda. I don't see any other countries wishing to take the floor. So under agenda item 4D, which is TEEP other issues, the issues to be added to the agenda are the TEEP membership changes, HALON 1301 in the aviation sector, but also considering this in the framework of fire suppression more broadly, very short-lived substances, and PFAS. Agenda item 9 is removed from the agenda, and under agenda item 11 on other issues, an item has been introduced, a CRP will be introduced on regional initiatives in support of the Kigali Amendment. Can we adopt the revised agenda? I see no objection, so thank you very much. The agenda is adopted. We now move to agenda item 2B, which is the organisation of work, and present the order and timing of how we might move through the agenda today and for the rest of the week. You will see from the next few slides that the proposed organisation of work follows the order of the agenda before you. We have estimated how long the discussion on each agenda item may take and made a rough schedule of which agenda items will fit into which sessions accordingly. But we will be flexible if some issues take a little shorter than expected or some issues take a little longer than expected. The slide that is currently being projected, which is not being projected, but it would be lovely if it, oh, it is there? Lovely. Shows the proposed organisation of work for the rest of today. This is particularly, I think, for that was this morning and this afternoon. And the next two slides show the proposed organisation of work for tomorrow. The first one for the morning session, and the next one for the afternoon session on Tuesday. Thank you. So as you can see, we are being ambitious in thinking we may be able to finish going through all of the items on the agenda by close of business Tuesday, but we will see how the discussions go, of course, and be flexible. As we go through each of the agenda items, we will establish contact groups or informal groups as necessary. If all goes smoothly, then we hope that the last 3 days of the meeting can be allocated to meetings of contact groups, informal groups, and any informal consultations that may be occurring. But we will be periodically reconvening plenary to receive reports back from the groups. Consistent with our usual practice at OEWG meetings, we will try to ensure that none of the contact groups and informal groups meet simultaneously. On Friday, when all the work on the substantive agenda items has been completed, we will adopt the report of the meeting under agenda item 12, and then move to the closure of the meeting. Now we have a few housekeeping issues. As usual, the morning sessions will run from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and the afternoon sessions from 3 to 6 p.m. My notes here say, as usual, we will be starting all sessions on time, but since we didn't start the morning session on time, I suggest that we will be endeavouring to start all sessions on time, so we do not waste valuable interpretation time. The Secretariat will ring the bell a few minutes before the start of each plenary session. The timings for the plenary, contact groups and informal group meetings will be projected on the screens in this room and around the conference centre. So this information can also be accessed on your cell phones as well as through the mobile application that is the Secretariat has established. The mobile app gives you access to meeting information, daily schedule, all the documents and the streaming to all the plenary sessions. And users of the app will also receive notifications to any changes to the schedule and any urgent matters. And I strongly urge you to download and use the app if you have not done so already. To book meeting rooms, please direct any requests to Mr. Nitti, and his details are on the screen, with a copy to Ms. Sukanya. Regarding conference room papers, please submit them in electronic form as soon as possible to Ms. Liazat, and her email is also on the screen as well. Please bear in mind that we do have time constraints in relation to interpretation. Any CRPs submitted before the lunch break on Thursday will be translated into the 6 official UN languages, but documents received after this cutoff date will only be made available in English or in the UN language in which it was submitted. If you need any help or assistance, please contact the Secretariat from the help desk outside the meeting hall or on this floor. The last point I would like to make is that there are many excellent side events that have been scheduled during the lunch breaks and the evenings, and I encourage delegates to attend as many of those side events as you can, notwithstanding other contact group or informal group commitments. Are there any questions or comments in relation to the organisation of work? I don't see any delegations wishing to take the floor, so we will proceed as proposed. Thank you very much for your patience. The organisation of work is agreed. I now hand over to Chantel to deal with the next agenda item.
Thank you, Annie. We will now consider agenda item 3 on the terms of reference for the study on the 2027 to 2029 replenishment of the multilateral fund. The multilateral fund operates with three-year funding cycles. The last replenishment decision taken by the parties was in 2023 and covered the period 2024 to 2026. In the second year of each funding cycle, the parties develop and adopt terms of reference for a study designed to estimate the funds necessary to enable Article 5 parties to achieve compliance during the forthcoming replenishment period. TEEP usually forms a replenishment task force to carry out the study. So this year, we should consider the terms of reference for a study of the funding level for 2027 to 2029. The terms of reference that were established for the last study in Decision 34/2 can be found in Annex 1 to the note by the Secretariat, Document 47/2. Delegates may wish to use this as a reference. As parties are aware, we normally establish a contact group to discuss the terms of reference, and I suggest as co-chair that we do the same at this meeting, unless there are objections to doing so. However, before establishing a contact group, I open the floor for general statements that parties may wish to make in the plenary on this subject. The floor is now open for interventions. Seeing no requests for the floor, I propose I see them coming in now. All right, so first on my list is the delegation from Micronesia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Good morning, colleagues, excellencies. It's a pleasure to be here in the beautiful city of Bangkok, and I wish to thank the government of Thailand for their warm and hospitable welcome. Many thanks to the Ozone Secretariat as well for all they do throughout the year and in preparation for these meetings. Thanks and congratulations also to both the co-chairs for your appointment. We are grateful for your time and commitment to steward us through these negotiations. And last but certainly not least, we are deeply grateful to all the delegates here today, representing their countries prepared to collaborate as together we continue building and protecting this extraordinary environmental treaty. With every passing month, vulnerable countries and communities are experiencing more impacts of rising temperatures. While global and national efforts to reduce emissions of other gases falter and fall short of what is needed to protect Earth and its inhabitants, the work of this treaty is a life raft. It is dependable and it is formidable. Madam Co-Chair, the world is experiencing difficult times. I do not need to explain to anyone the global challenges that seem to multiply before our eyes. But it is in these times that we must join our hearts, minds, and convictions in order to further strengthen these things that we know can help us weather the storm into the future. In the absence of other reliable, life-saving solutions, our Montreal Protocol life raft can, if we choose, become a rescue fleet. The discussions on the terms of reference at this meeting are an opportunity to secure and strengthen the work of the protocol and the Kigali Amendment. 3 years ago, we were preparing for the first implementation cycle of the Kigali Amendment for Article 5 countries. Now, not only do we have experience and finalized guidelines, but we also have a stronger foundation of understanding and information on complementary yet critical topics like life cycle refrigerant management. We have a better understanding of the actions that will help the world keep up with rising temperatures, increasing demand for cooling equipment, and can protect food supplies, medicines, and people. These may not be compliance requirements per se, but they are development imperatives under other UN agreements and processes that we are all also parties to. The past triennium saw the first stage of Kigali implementation overlapping the final phase of the HCFC phase-out. We expected an increase in spending to meet both of these needs. but that has not been the case. And we understand that there will be more of a carryover of nearly $600 million. The next triennium is perhaps one of the most critical the protocol has ever seen. The world is accelerating towards dangerous temperature levels that could create devastating, cascading consequences to the oceans, glaciers, and the Amazon. What we achieve under the protocol could alter the course of these risks. Micronesia hopes to see a terms of reference that provides the opportunity for the protocol to do its utmost, not the bare minimum. A TOR that strengthens the institutions and processes supporting implementation and optimizes the avenues for preventing emissions of ODS and HFCs, as well as supporting energy efficiency. Micronesia, collectively, we look forward to constructive discussions in the contact group. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Micronesia. I have on my list Denmark, Canada, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, India, United Kingdom, Kuwait, and Japan. Distinguished delegate of Denmark, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. The Kingdom of Denmark, as the current EU presidency of the Council of Ministers, is speaking on behalf of the European Union and its 27 member states. On agenda item 3, we would like to firstly thank the Ozone Secretariat for making the last decision on the terms of reference for study on replenishment of the Multilateral Fund available online together with the agenda. We're confident that parties will have productive discussions on a draft decision on this terms of reference for the study on the 2027 to 2029 replenishment this week to prepare for its finalization and adoption at the MOP this autumn. We would like to take this chance to reflect on the priorities that we would like to discuss in a contact group. These primarily relate to simplification of the language, reflecting developments associated with decisions adopted by the meeting of the parties and the Executive Committee of the Multilateral Fund, while giving clear guidance to the TEEP to enable them to provide precise estimates aligned with the needs of parties, and maintaining the high level of ambition to address the global challenges we're facing. A particularly important issue is the increasing awareness of the potentially harmful effects on the environment and human health of PFAS substances. This has led to an increasing number of regulatory measures from parties, underlining the urgency of the matter and of better understanding costs and savings related to leapfrogging by moving directly to natural refrigerants. Madam Co-Chair, we look forward to working constructively with other parties and further discuss this in a contact group. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Denmark on behalf of the EU. I have next on my list Canada.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chairs. As others before me, I would like to thank the government of Thailand, as people have said, for this warm welcome. It's always a pleasure to be back in Bangkok, despite the challenging jet lag. We'd also like to thank the Ozone Secretariat for the organization of this meeting, as well as all the information and technical documents that have been made available on the website. These are all very much appreciated. Madam Co-Chair, in our view, replenishment studies represent a cornerstone of the process through which the parties to the Montreal Protocol replenish the multilateral fund each triennium. These studies help to ensure that replenishment decisions are, to a significant extent, based on a credible technical assessment of the resources that are needed for Article 5 countries to comply with their current and upcoming compliance obligations. In that regard, Canada supports that a replenishment study that is based on an objective assessment of compliance needs of Article 5 countries be undertaken. These compliance needs are in particular in the upcoming 27-29 triennium consists of the 67.5% reduction in 2025 and 97.5% reduction in 2030 applicable to HCFCs, as well as the freeze and 10% reduction applicable to HFCs for both Group 1 and Group 2 parties that have ratified the Kigali Amendment. This assessment should also take into account all relevant decisions of the parties and of the Executive Committee of the Multilateral Fund up to the time of the preparation of the study. In addition to the compliance targets, there are, of course, decisions on specific levels of funding windows for enhancing energy efficiency while phasing down HFCs, as well as decisions on the disposal end of life of controlled substances that have been taken by the EXCOM. We have also taken a decision last year on enhancing atmospheric monitoring that would imply some resources from the Multilateral Fund. Finally, and as per usual practice, the funding requirement should include the funding required for institutional strengthening, the compliance assessment program of UNEP, the administrative costs of the implementing agencies, and the budget of the Multilateral Fund Secretariat and Treasurer, among others. One of the challenges that the TEEP had with the two previous replenishment reports is that the approach and cost guidelines for the phase down of HFCs had yet to be agreed, and the cost guidance related to enhancing energy efficiency had yet to be developed. We are now at a place where not only have this been agreed, but there is experience in approving and initiating the implementation of Kigali HFC implementation plans, KIPs, in many Article 5 countries. And specific decisions have been agreed by the EXCOM regarding energy efficiency and the disposal of controlled substances. The eligible and cost and the level of cost for the HFC servicing sector are set by the guidelines. With respect to the HFC manufacturing sectors, the maximum incremental operating costs and cost effectiveness that can be requested in project proposals have been adopted. But the TEEP will still need to use its best judgment and apply historical experience to estimate the actual cost effectiveness of projects that can be achieved for the different manufacturing sector, and also make some assumptions in terms of which sectors and which alternatives Article 5 parties will select to ensure their compliance with the control measures. Thus, we believe that with all the guidance developed by the Executive Committee over the past 3 years, the study should in principle be more straightforward to undertake, and the terms of reference could be simplified as compared to previous times. In light of this development, Canada has partnered with a few other countries to develop a draft decision to provide direction to the TEEP on the terms of reference, working from the decision adopted last year, but mainstreaming it to a significant extent to reflect the fact that explicit references to certain issues are no longer required, since these issues have now been incorporated within EXCOM decisions and practice. We have not yet submitted this draft CRP, but we intend to do so today. When we come back to this item, we hope that it can serve as a basis for discussions among parties. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of Canada. We do look forward to seeing the submission of the draft CRP. Next on the list, we have Nigeria, followed by Saudi Arabia. Nigeria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank the government of Thailand for hosting us, and also thank the Secretariat for their work in preparing the meeting documents. And I would also like to congratulate the co-chairs for their appointment. Madam Chair, in considering the terms of reference to determine the level of funding for the 2027 to 2029 triennium, the increasing challenges that confront our A5 parties in meeting their obligations should be taken into cognizance. For example, adequate resources will be needed to be provided to achieve the 2030 targets of the HPMP, particularly taking note of the ban on production and consumption of HCFCs. There is also the issue of ODS banks and the life cycle refrigerant management. The need to support early actions in view of the commitments already made by some A5 countries to accelerate the HFC's reduction under the Kigali implementing plans, training and capacity building, and also institutional strengthening, and also illegal trading, etc., are very critical that the terms of reference should be addressed. My delegation will like to be part of the discussion on this subject, especially in the contact group. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of Nigeria. We now have Saudi Arabia. You have the floor.
In the name of God, the Merciful, I would like to thank the President for giving me the floor. Since you are taking the floor for the first time, we would like to thank the Kingdom of Thailand for hosting this meeting, and also thank the Secretariat for preparing it, and for the tireless work conducted in order to support our work. We are committed to protect the ozone layer and positively take part in all international efforts in order to achieve this objective, taking into account the conditions of countries with high temperatures in particular. We would like to place an emphasis on the need for cooperation for capacity building at the national level and just transition towards alternatives without affecting the economic industrial development of countries. We would therefore like to have a rich discussion in order to strengthen the goals of the protocol and protect the interests of countries. We would also like to pay tribute to the efforts made in order to further develop the goals of the fund. Here we emphasize the importance of establishing clear references, taking into account differentiated capacities of countries and the different technical capacities to ensure a just and transparent distribution. We also highlight the importance of flexibility in processes of implementation to ensure that states can move forwards towards the goals while taking into account their national interests as well. We also highlight the importance of a just geographical distribution, taking into account high ambient temperature countries and all the challenges that they face in order to ensure that these countries can meet their obligations in an effective and just manner within the context. Within this context, we would like to insert a topic on national capacity building and provide countries with the economic means to have a lasting transition which serves the needs of developing countries while also supporting local markets and their development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Saudi Arabia, and we note your support for continued discussions, especially in the context of high ambient temperature countries. On the list of speakers, I have India, Kuwait, Japan, United States of America, Norway, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Grenada, and Lebanon. If there are any other parties that would wish to make a contribution on this matter, I would invite you to indicate now before we close the list of speakers. So I invite India to take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. As India is taking the floor for the first time, we would like to thank the government of Thailand for hosting us. We would also like to thank the Secretariat for inviting us to be part of this open-ended working group. In view of the paucity of time, I don't want to repeat things already said, but noting that the Kigali Amendment had added several new dimensions to the implementation of the Montreal Protocol, including relating to energy efficiency and the disposal of refrigerants at end of life, that some activity-based costs consequently needed to be revisited, that rapid decisions were required in order not to miss out on the important opportunities to transition to sustainable technologies, that cooling has been recognized as a development need in many countries that otherwise would have to adopt a holistic approach to cooling issues. So taking note that sustainability beyond compliance, as we face down HFCs, India would like to mention that while finalizing the terms of reference for the study to estimate the funding for replenishment for the 2027 and 2029 triennium, note should be taken that SMEs would find it difficult for alternatives and technologies as they are expensive or patented at the moment. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of India. Kuwait, you have the floor.
شكرا سيدتي الرئيسة المشاركة في البداية.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, for giving me the floor. We would like to pay tribute to the Kingdom of Thailand for hosting this meeting. We also thank the Ozone Secretariat for the sound preparation of this meeting and the efforts that they have undertaken. We'd also like to thank the co-chairs for taking up this very difficult role. Co-chair, I will now speak in English.
To say that I will echo a lot of things that the distinguished delegate previously parties was mentioning, which shows how significant that the replenishment for this year is veiled and fatal for a lot of Article 5 country. I just want to highlight some element keeping the discussion for further contact group if we decided to have a contact group. I think the thing that we are facing and looking now when we are discussing project and KIPS approval, we think that opening funding window for activities under 28.2 is a must now. We are looking to the energy efficiency, we are looking to the end life of refrigerant, we are talking about several issues, and these issues need to have one. One of the major issues that the task force have to put in their mind is the approach and the initiative that we generated as under revolving fund in the last EXCOM meeting. We see how eager countries want to approach, but it was limited to an initiative of several number of projects, and we have to decide from this 4 or 5 projects, 2 projects to be funded. I think that window have to be increased and give leverage to other countries to, after exercising, to be available for us to go and engage and get such fund and revolving fund as a must for a lot of countries to highlight this one. The second thing that I'm seeing in the last EXCOM when we are debating an approval for such project, that long-term consumption reduction target for KIPS beyond 2030 or 2035 to beyond have been neglected, and we are forcing them not to go beyond that one. I think the task force should take into consideration a calculation and estimation for countries who's wishing to come beyond 35. Why not because that will help them to get the total sectors in some countries that provide for them. And also we have to take in our consideration also long-term related target for the small countries, LVCs and LVVCs. So these countries have to have longer term targets or they cannot achieve whatever is there. The 10% or 15% is not there. I think in this era, when we are coming to these meetings, we think that the world is tremendously going to technologies, and I think the task force have to take in their consideration the digital systems and digital analyzations, and also taken in their account the IA programs to highlight and facilitate the job of the servicing sector, manufacturing sector. One of the action that we need to take also the energy efficiency, and it now related to all the KIPs. And lastly, I think there is a big argument now that the end user for the equipment have to be funded in some countries and it will be extended to other countries. So I think there was a lot of things that we can approve and we can. Lastly, as high ambient temperature countries, my distinguished delegate from Saudi Arabia was mentioning the same. I will echo also that one. And I say to the task force, we as a group too, we may come earlier than it's been designed for us, so that have also to be concluded in your calculation. If all these 10 countries may wish to come earlier than its timing, because a lot of us are ratified already. So this is have to be also taken into consideration. I will urge the task force also to put in their consideration the vital of having a member of the MLF Secretariat with them when they are doing their calculation, when they are looking for the scenarios of futuristic, because just consulting with MLF, I think that need to be, I wish to have one member from the MLF to join that task force, as usually they have to be there and give them all the advice, all the information needed, rather than just communication by emails or just phone calls. Thank you very much.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Kuwait, for your contributions. Next, we have on the list Japan. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. As this delegation has taken the floor for the first time, we would also like to begin by expressing our sincere appreciation to the government of Thailand for hosting us here in beautiful city of Bangkok and for their warm hospitality. And also we would like to thank the Ozone Secretariat and co-chairs for their efforts in preparing this meeting. On the matter of the TOR for the study on the MLF replenishment for the next triennium, 2027 to 2029, first of all, Japan fully recognizes the importance of ensuring that the fund remains adequately resourced to support Article 8 parties in meeting their compliance obligations under the Montreal Protocol. At the same time, we believe it is equally important to ensure that the fund operates in a sustainable and cost-effective manner, with funding estimates based on realistic and credible assumptions aligned with the approved mandates and relevant decisions. To this end, we believe that a focused, transparent, and compliance-driven replenishment study will provide a sound basis for the upcoming negotiations and contribute to the continued success of the Montreal Protocol. In this regard, we would be pleased to co-sponsor the CRP that's to be introduced by Canada and look forward to engaging in the contact group discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Japan, and we note your wish to co-sponsor with Canada on the CRP. And now invite the United States of America to take the floor, followed by Norway. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. Just to say that we support a study that focuses on the costs associated with compliance, and in particular focusing on upcoming targets that Article 5 countries are working to achieve. This, after all, is fundamentally the purpose of the multilateral fund that is set out in Article 10. With that said, we do note and acknowledge that the study should include already agreed windows of funding things that we have already agreed upon. From our perspective, I would note an important point is that I really think we need to focus on streamlining the language in the decision. So typically we have some language that refers back to the idea of taking into account decisions that have already been taken in the multilateral fund or by the parties. So rather than try to struggle through repeating many of those decisions, we would advocate for a much streamlined text while leaving it to a general reference to take into account other decisions that have already been made. I fear if we don't do this, we may find ourselves bogged down trying to negotiate a very large amount of text. And for this delegation, certainly I expect we will have difficulty wading into such level of detail. We also would like to see this time around to have the TEEP use realistic cost assessments. Canada noted we have adopted guidelines, we have more information available to us this time, so perhaps the uncertainties are much less. I would just say we think the TEEP could most realistically estimate cost using historic estimates of costs that we have seen in various sectors. Further, I would note that we will support having the TEEP analyze scenarios that reflect current economic conditions, especially for the country that is the largest producer and consumer of controlled substances, and we will have some specific suggestions in that regard. I would say that one aspect that we would like to see some changes as compared to the last study relates to both the substance and the transparency of the work done by TEEP in the last replenishment cycle. I would just note that the report they produced last time produced what from our perspective was an inflated assessment of the actual need to achieve the compliance obligations under the protocol, as well as the additional items that we knew we would be looking towards funding. And I would expect this time around we need to have an estimate that is both much more grounded in reality, but that also includes a greater degree of transparency from the TEEP, so that in fact members can actually understand some of the assumptions being made and the calculations that the TEEP is undertaking. And then finally, just a couple of points to respond to issues raised during the discussion. I think first on the point raised by Kuwait, I think in concept we are supportive of, I think, what Kuwait is trying to do. I think the issue of liaising with the Multilateral Fund Secretariat and drawing on the expertise of the Secretariat, I think that's extremely important. And I'll be honest, I think in the last replenishment cycle and perhaps at other times in the past, we think this type of consultation has not been sufficient. In fact, that relates to one of my prior points about the estimate that was made in the last replenishment round. So I think in concept, we'd endorse what Kuwait said. I'm a little less sure from this delegation's perspective about the idea of adding the MLF Secretariat to the task force. I'm not sure that we think that is appropriate from an institutional perspective. But just to say, I think we are supportive of the idea in general. Happy to work with Kuwait and others, I think, to see how we can improve the process a little bit in this regards, because I think it will in fact lead us to having a better estimate of the actual financial needs over the next 3 years for countries that have taken on obligations to meet the commitments that they have made. So those are the compliance commitments. And then finally, just to say, we look forward to seeing the CRP that Canada, Japan, and others are co-sponsoring, and look forward to that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of the United States, for that contribution. We note your support of further discussions on the issue. I have now on the list Norway, followed by the United Kingdom. Norway, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. We would like to convene our congratulations to both of you for your election. We are confident that you will ensure a smooth and efficient organization of our work this week. We would like to thank the government and people of Thailand for their warm welcome and hospitality. And we also thank the Ozone Secretariat for their work in preparing and organizing the meeting. We would like to thank Canada for their initiative of submitting a CRP, and we look forward to see it. We understand the CRP will be a good start for our discussion in order to task the TIP, estimating the level of funding that would be needed for A5 parties to comply with the HFC and HEFC targets in the upcoming triennium. Further, we also think it could be useful to request the TIP to provide a range of estimates by taking into consideration different scenarios. And we will be happy to further discuss some ideas already mentioned in some previous interventions, and in particular, taking into consideration different pathways that Article 5 countries might choose for phasing down HFCs. We are also interested in discussing some other ideas for additional activities that could potentially be considered by the meeting of the parties or the executive committee in the upcoming years. We'll be happy to further discuss this item in the contact group. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of Norway. So on the list, we now have United Kingdom. You have the floor.
Thank you, co-chairs. As this is the first time my delegation is taking the floor, we would like to express our appreciation to the Ozone Secretariat for the excellent arrangements for the meeting, and to the government of Thailand for welcoming us to the beautiful city of Bangkok. I'd also like to thank the distinguished delegate of Canada for proposing a draft CRP for the terms of reference for the replenishment. The UK intends on co-sponsoring this CRP alongside Canada and Japan, and feel it will be a good basis for discussion. We have seen commendable progress made this triennium through EXCOM on atmospheric monitoring, energy efficiency, disposal, and Kigali implementation. And as we look forward to the next triennium, we recognise that 2027 to 2029 is a crucial time for Article 5 parties in terms of meeting compliance obligations. The alignment of the HCFC phase-out through to the 10% cut in HFC consumption brings unprecedented challenges. To catalyse rapid and sustainable transformation of the cooling sector, we see this as a key opportunity to maintain and build on the ambitious progress we have made through EXCOM. We look forward to submitting the CRP for consideration and to a contact group to discuss the issue in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of the United Kingdom. So we've had some very positive discussions. On the list right now, we have Grenada, Bahrain, China, Lebanon, Bhutan, Mozambique, and closing out the list is Lesotho. So Grenada, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair, and good morning, colleagues. Madam Chair, I would like to join the sweet refrain of previous speakers in congratulating both yourself and your co-chair to this very important role to preside over this meeting. And I have very personal admiration for you, Madam Co-Chair, as you represent our region of Grulac, and in particular, the sub-region of the English-speaking Caribbean and Haiti. I know you'd be expertly guided and assisted by Annie, your co-chair, and so I want to congratulate the both of you. I'd also want to extend deep appreciation to the Ozone Secretariat for the presentation of the documents for this meeting and for all of the arrangements that have been made so far. And of course, again, I want to thank the government of the Kingdom of Thailand for the usual very warm hospitality, especially for us who come from very, very far to enjoy this beautiful city of yours. On the issue of the agenda item, I would like to first of all say that my delegation is deeply grateful for the funding levels that have been provided under the current triennium to address many of the issues under the KIP Stage 1, for example, funding that has been provided for energy efficiency, for ODS banks inventory and plans, and for some of the other areas mentioned by previous colleagues, such as the SMEs and the revolving fund that was approved for some countries at the last EXCOM meeting. Having said that, I think we need to do a much more thorough examination of this current terms of reference for the next triennium. And I'm saying that in the context of what is required for us in the KIP Stage 1 and beyond. Particularly for low volume consuming countries, the current funding levels that have been approved for LVCs and VLVCs is posing a huge challenge in allowing us to achieve the targets that are set forth under the protocol. And in so doing, I think we need to, in the last triennium, we did indicate that the needs of LVCs should be given special consideration. I want to say that for the next triennium, as we develop these terms of reference, we may need to change the narrative to say, not just special consideration, but very special consideration. It is indeed a huge and daunting exercise for us under the current funding levels to achieve the targets under the KIP Stage 1, and I'm just sending an early signal that in the development of the terms of reference, that this should be given due and further consideration. And I want to end by saying that under the development of the terms of reference, I want to put forward that in previous circumstances, incentives were created and presented mainly, if not all, for the manufacturing sector. I think now countries with only a servicing sector should be given due consideration for incentives, especially where we are asked to take more ambitious actions to accelerate or phase down activities. I'm asking that some consideration should be given for incentives to be provided for countries with only a servicing sector. I look forward to the discussions that would ensue on this very important topic. I look forward to the CRP that would be presented by Canada et al. And I look forward to joining, whether it's a contact group, as is normal practice, or other means to further elaborate on this issue. Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate, for your contribution and your support. Thank you to all the delegates who have expressed support to both Annie and myself as co-chairs. Next, we have the distinguished delegate of Bahrain. Bahrain, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Good morning, everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank the government of the Kingdom of Thailand for their warm hospitality and welcome to which we have been accustomed, and I would like to thank the Ozone Secretariat for the organization of this meeting. And I would like to thank you for all your efforts to help all the participating delegations based on the documents that have been provided throughout this week. I also thank the two co-chairs and wish you all success in guiding this meeting towards the hoped for success. I'm not going to be long. Many of the previous delegates have set out a number of suggestions concerning the TORs on the replenishment of the multilateral fund for the period 27-29. Many of the challenges have been exposed and have been explained. These challenges will be discussed in the meeting of the contact groups. I would like to focus on the following: that it is important to replenish the MLF for the Article 5 countries, bearing into consideration the challenges faced by the countries suffering from high levels of temperature, particularly that many of these countries are now on the brink of preparing many projects under the Kigali Protocol. There are many learned lessons over the last years, particularly concerning the TOR of the activities. It is important that we take into consideration all the challenges and all the lessons learned in our countries, so that we can come out with an accurate estimate of the resources that will help us address these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate Bahrain, for your clear and short intervention. I now invite the distinguished delegate of China to take the floor, just noting that we will close out the list with Qatar. So China, then Lebanon, Bhutan, Mozambique, Lesotho, and Qatar. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to make a brief intervention. Over the past many years, the multilateral fund has been providing developing countries with technical and funding support, which has helped in boosting the implementation ability of developing countries. We also want to thank TIP for their large amount of work and contributions. As many delegates have spoken, that the 2017 to 2029 is an important phase for implementation. We suggest that during this study, TIP should fully consider the developing countries' needs for funding and technical support, especially the low GWP technology, retrofitting SMEs, energy efficiency, and also the full life cycle management of coolants. Our delegation will continue to play their role by discussing with relevant parties. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from China. I now give the distinguished delegate of Lebanon the floor. Lebanon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Distinguished colleagues, this is the first time that my delegation takes the floor. We would like to begin by expressing our sincere appreciation to the Secretariat for the excellent organization of this meeting and for its continued support to all parties under the Montreal Protocol. We also take this opportunity to recognize the valuable work of the TIAP and its replenishment task force, whose assessment continue to guide informed and equitable replenishment decisions. As we begin discussions on the terms of reference for the 2027-2029 replenishment, Lebanon underscores the importance of ensuring that the scope of the study reflects the full breadth of obligations now being implemented by A5 parties. In addition to the continuing phase-out of HCFCs and the staged implementations of the HFC phase-down under the Kigali Amendment, many parties are now actively advancing work in emerging but increasing essential areas, which include the comprehensive refrigerant life cycle management, systemic identification and elimination of ODS and HFC banks, and robust national measures to detect, prevent, and respond to illegal trade in controlled substances. These efforts are no longer supplementary. They are critical enablers for long-term environmental integrity and compliance under Montreal Protocol. Accordingly, We believe the replenishment must give clear and explicit considerations to the full cost implications of these areas, while maintaining transparency and balance in how resources are distributed across enabling activities, institutional strengthening, and implementation support. Lebanon also wishes to highlight the importance of taking into account regional and climatic realities when modeling cost scenarios. We are not categorized as a high ambient temperature country, but Lebanon, as many other countries, have been significantly impacted by the observable increase in temperature and cooling demand due to climate variability. These trends have placed growing pressure on our servicing sector, increased the volume of equipment in circulation, and raised the cost of transitioning to low GWP, energy-efficient technologies. These contextual factors must be reflected in any forward-looking financial planning. We also wish to emphasize the strategic importance of advancing digital monitoring and management tools as a core element of future implementation, from electronic licensing system to refrigerant tracking platforms and integrated reporting interfaces. Such technologies are critical not only for transparency and compliance, but also for their potential to deliver co-benefits in energy efficiency and mitigation. In particular, we see great value in supporting initiatives that demonstrate the use of digital tools to enhance energy efficiency and reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in the space cooling and cold chain sector. These types of projects should be clearly recognized as eligible for fundings and fully integrated into the replenishment cost structure. In parallel, we underscore the importance of seeing a great number of projects being approved and implemented, especially in these emerging priority areas. Accelerating the review and endorsement of well-designed proposals is essential not only for enabling compliance, but also for reinforcing the credibility and responsiveness of the replenishment process. A timely and supportive project pipeline sends a strong signal of continued collective commitment to the goals under the Montreal Protocol. Furthermore, we encourage the inclusion of structured and transparent consultation with the parties during the preparation of the TORs and their replenishment. Madam Co-Chair, Lebanon looks forward to working constructively with all other parties to formulate the TORs that enable a robust, inclusive, and a forward-looking replenishment package that delivers the support needed for effective, sustained, and equitable implementation of our collective commitments under Montreal Protocol. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of Lebanon. Okay, so after I indicated that we would have to close the list, Indonesia joined the list. So we will close with Indonesia given the time constraint, but we will move on to give the floor to distinguished delegate of Bhutan. Bhutan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. First time this delegation has taken the floor. We would like to thank the Secretariat for the preparatory works and sharing the documents needed for this meeting. We would also like to thank the Kingdom and people of Thailand for hosting us in this lively and beautiful city of Bangkok. We would like to join the other delegates in congratulating the two co-chairs on your appointment. Our intervention will be quite brief as many delegates have spoken before us on several topics that is interest to us. As we echo the sentiments of the distinguished delegates from countries that have spoken before us, even as a low volume consuming country among the Article 5 country, we are not exempt from the effects of climate change. We are now rapidly seeing the need to cool our homes, offices, surroundings, and cars, even in the Himalayas. The MLF Fund plays a major role in implementing the activities that fulfill the obligations of the Montreal Protocol and the Kigali Amendments. We share the sentiments from distinguished delegate from Grenada. Leslie has put it very well, and I could not add more to his intervention. As a country that does not manufacture, we hope that Grenada's proposal sees support. Also, since there are dual benefits of ozone layer protection and mitigating climate change for phasing down and phasing out of HFCs, Bhutan would like to recommend that the replenishment study consider the climate co-benefits in our KIPs as it aligns with the broader environmental objectives and enhances justification for increased funding. We are open to discussion with countries that might be interested in further discussion. We're looking ahead to seeing the CRPs of Japan and Canada and others. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of Bhutan. I now give the floor to Mozambique. Mozambique, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam. Good morning, everyone. Madam, my delegation would like to support this contact group with some items to be discussed in the meeting, in the contact group. Madam, few years ago, we have been discussing about the transfer of technology, transfer of know-how, and exchange of experience. And some of us, we had opportunity to visit Brazil for exchange of experience. We had opportunity to visit Angola for exchange of experience, but today, this practice has left to behind. And we are not getting quite well what is happening in other countries in terms of how to implement the Montreal Protocol. Madam, allow me to tell you something. Some of our countries, like Mozambique, this one is the big project, the Kigali Amendment. We are not talking about only the refrigerant, we are talking about the refrigerants and the technology. Today in Mozambique, we have thousands and thousands fridges, air conditioning, and other equipment. And we don't have the experience how to do the treatment and to do the destruction. And we need the assistance from MLF to find the solution. Madam Chair, for main solution to be found in this meeting, we need the funding from MLF. That's why Mozambique will be happy to be part of this process, so we can contribute some ideas how we can get the best solution in this project. Thank you very much for the floor.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of Mozambique. And now give the floor to Lesotho. Distinguished delegate of Lesotho, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, let me thank Awesome Secretariat for her excellent organization of the meeting, the government of Thailand for the good welcome to this meeting. Also congratulate both of you chairs for your new positions. Really looking at this study or this replenishment period, we find it very much important because that's what is going to lead us on how we can be able to implement the military protocol in order to make sure that all the countries, including the small countries like Lesotho, remain compliant. However, we still have the gap which we haven't filled yet. Of course, a number of studies and number of half-day meetings from ESCOM until yesterday meeting, we found that still we have a gap in terms of data collection. The discrepancy on data collection tells us that there's something which we should have been doing, but we have not yet done. I therefore recommend that for the coming study, the study have to capture the issues of data collections, maybe as far as on the digitalization issues, as maybe to try to find the solutions for filling up the gaps. The other issue which we think it has to be considered for the study also is the issue of, in terms of sustainability in the cooling sector, because it implies in all the chains from the border, from the manufacturing until to the end of end users, there are still some sectors which have not yet attended. I therefore thank you, Madam.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of Lesotho. And I'll give the floor to Qatar, and then that would be followed by our final speaker, Indonesia. Qatar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, Madam Co-Chair, ladies and gentlemen. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. At the outset, I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation as a representative of Qatar to the government of the Kingdom of Thailand for their warm welcome. I also thank the co-chair and congratulate you on your assumption of the co-chairmanship of this very important meeting. Our participation in this meeting is based on our belief that the treaties and protocols are extremely important in fostering international cooperation to face international challenges, taking into consideration the high temperature countries and the national circumstances. I would like to thank all participants for their efforts and wish you all success. Thank you.
I now invite the distinguished delegate from Indonesia to take the floor, after which we will propose a way forward. Indonesia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. First of all, we would like to join others in expressing our deepest gratitude to the government and people of the Kingdom of Thailand for hosting the meeting and express sincere appreciation on work of the Secretariat for the organizational of the meetings. Indonesia supports the decision on this agenda item, particularly concerning the upcoming target for the Article 5 countries with the support of the multilateral fund within the agreed windows. The replenishment this year is crucial for Article 5 countries, particularly on the support for Kigali Implementation Plan and energy efficiency as well as LRM, as these issues are playing a crucial role in achieving targets in order to meet compliance of the parties to the Montreal Protocol. We also recognize the importance of the need for the annual average of 2.5% reduction in hydrochlorofluorocarbon tail consumption for servicing and non-servicing applications during the period of 2030-2040. We look forward to an important discussion on these particular matters in the contact group. I thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of Indonesia. So we've had a plethora of interventions with very detailed suggestions for the elements that should be included in the terms of reference. So there is consensus that we should form a contact group, so thank you for that. So we will await anxiously the submission of the draft CRP by Canada and the accompanying co-sponsors. We urge the co-sponsors to submit as soon as possible, following which a contact group will be established with co-chairs appointed at a date and time to be determined. So that is the proposed way forward. There is a consensus for a contact group on the terms of reference for the replenishment study. With that, we will now consider agenda item 4 on the presentations by the TEEP on its 2025 progress report, including its response to mock decisions on the following issues: life cycle refrigerant management, metered dose inhalers with low global warming potential propellants, and options for the organization of the panel and its technical options committees. These issues and the issues that we agreed to consider under any other issues will be discussed under the sub-items of this agenda item. After the presentation by the TEEP, I would like to invite the members of the TEEP and its technical options committees to come to the podium to present their key findings to us. As the members of the TEEP and talks make their way to the podium, let me mention that the addendum to the note by the Secretariat, document 47/2/add1, includes summaries of these issues. The full TEEP 2025 progress report is also available on the meeting portal. The exact references can be seen on the screen. Now, I would also like to alert parties about how we will organize the question and answers session. When we open the floor for that session, we will invite questions in the following order of the chapters of the report. Questions on the Flexible and Rigid Foams Technical Options Committee, questions on the Fire Suppression Technical Options Committee Progress Report, followed by questions on the Methyl Bromide Technical Options Committee Progress Report, then questions on the Medical and Chemical Technical Options Committee Progress Report, including the responses to Decision 36/6 on MDIs, questions on the Refrigeration and Air Conditioning and Heat Pumps Technical Options Committee Progress Report, including the response to Decision 36/2 on Life Cycle Refrigerant Management, followed by questions on any TEEP issues, including on PFAS and its organizational issues. Before we close the question and answer session, we will provide parties with a final opportunity to ask general questions that they did not manage to ask under the chapters. This way, we hope that the Q&A will be more organized and efficient with our time, and even more so, easier for the team to manage. Secretariat, is everyone here? Needs to be here? No, we don't. That being said, in the interest of time, I now give the floor to the TEEP and its talks for their presentation. Bella, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Good morning, distinguished delegates. On behalf of my co-chairs, Marta Pisano and Ashley Woodcock, as well as the members of the Technology and Economic Assessment Panel, it's my pleasure to begin our presentation of TEEP's 2025 Progress Report. TEEP's reports in 2025 consist of 2 volumes. We're presenting our progress report today. We'll present our response to Decision 36/3 on emissions of HFC 23 at the MOP. We're very grateful for the information submitted by parties to the relevant decisions on life cycle refrigerant management, emissions of HFC 23, very short-lived substances, feedstock uses, and metered dose inhalers. We'll review this information. A lot of it came post the publication of our report, but certainly appreciate the information. We'll review it and consider it for our relevant reports. These are the members of the TEEP. We're very grateful for their continued work throughout the year. We also appreciate the experts from many countries who serve on our technical options committees, as well as the parties who support those experts to participate in our various bodies. We'd also like to extend our sincere appreciation and gratitude to the Ozone Secretariat for continuing to support the work of the TEEP. With that, I'll go ahead and turn our presentation over to Helen Walter-Terroni, our co-chair for the Flexible and Rigid Foams Technical Options Committee.
Thank you, Bella. I'm here on behalf of my co-chair, Paula Atoy, and myself. We can go to the next, in our committee. The successful transitions are underway from HCFCs and HFCs, continuing for most foam types. Most previously used HFCs are no longer used in foams in almost all non-A5 parties. The supply chain recovery continues for foam blowing agents and other raw materials related to foam manufacture. Hydrofluoroolefin, HFO, and hydrochlorofluoroolefin, HCFO imbalances have eased in both A5 and non-A5 parties due to capacity increases in production, and higher than expected demand for pentanes has challenged availability in some cases. Companies in A5 parties that converted to HCFC 3065 MFC have now transitioned again due to that plant closure in 2023. Economics continue to drive the selection and blending and the quantity, the loading of foam blowing agent used in foam manufacture. There's been continued use of HFC 245 FA blends in A5 parties due to the cost of olefin alternatives, HFO, HCFO alternatives. Many companies have elected to transition away from fluorinated foam blowing agents due to the cost of fluorochemicals. Companies in both A5 and non-A5 parties have converted to non-fluorocarbons if they can still meet insulation performance and other criteria. Non-fluorocarbon components like hydrocarbon, methyl, etc., are reportedly blended with fluorocarbons to reduce costs. Health and safety considerations of new foam blowing agents have become more apparent. Flammable foam blowing agents and foam blowing agents with differing toxicity create unique safety concerns for end users and workers at system houses and foam manufacturers, especially small and medium sized enterprises, SMEs. The commercial adoption of hydrocarbon foam blowing agents in A5 parties is increasing, and some SMEs have reportedly adopted foam HC hydrocarbons without safety precautions in place. Anecdotally, local companies have generally installed these safety precautions if they have received multilateral fund support for the transitions. And separately, hydrocarbons are being tested as a blowing agent for spray foam. Owing to toxicity concerns, dichloroethylene, 1,2-DCE, use in polyurethane foam is currently being reviewed by at least one party. Field studies related to PU spray foam, polyurethane spray foam, indoor air quality show that DCE concentrations may be present for months or years after installation. With that, I turn this over to the fire suppression talk, Adam Chataway.
Thank you, Helen. Good morning, distinguished delegates. It's my pleasure to present this FS Talk Progress Report on behalf of my co-chairs, Sergei Kopilov and Dan Vodonik. Starting with civil aviation. The International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, currently mandates that Halon 1301 cannot be used in cargo compartments of completely new aircraft designs after 2024. Now, by completely new designs, I'm referring to a basic aircraft type. So think of the next completely new Boeing. It might be a 797 or the next new Airbus, an Airbus A360, for example. The global civil aviation industry is preparing to submit a request to ICAO to extend this date beyond 2024. This is reportedly owing to the significant long-term uncertainty and apprehension caused by the potential PFAS regulations. 2-BTP, when blended with CO2, is or was one of the leading alternatives to Halon 1301 for cargo compartments. Under some definitions, 2-BTP is classed as a PFAS. Therefore, in the absence of alternatives, the civil aviation industry expects to be able to use Halon 1301 in cargo compartments of the next generation aircraft. Should ICAO agree to this request, civil aviation is therefore committing to require Halon for at least an additional 50 years and likely much further into the future. And this is obviously well beyond any of the estimated run-out dates for Halon 1301. Therefore, to ensure long-term Halon 1301 supply is available to meet their increasing and extended demand, the civil aviation industry also intends to pursue an essential use nomination process. As a result, parties may wish to consider the following: requesting the FSTOC to coordinate with ICAO on fire suppressants controlled under the Montreal Protocol, liaising with civil aviation authorities to defer this decision until at least the 2028 ICAO General Assembly. If you're not aware, ICAO General Assembly only meets every 3 years. Furthermore, requesting the TEEP to evaluate the suitability of the existing EUN essential use exemption procedures, whereby all parties may need to have access to Halon under the EUE. Furthermore, requesting ICAO to provide to the Ozone Secretariat all locations of the maintenance, repair and overhaul, or MRO operations, which are authorised to service Halon 1301 extinguishers. This would be for confidential use by the TEEP and the SAP. This is because the service organisations, as well as the aircraft manufacturers, would need to have access to Halon 1301 in the future. Looking at the availability of Halon 1301, the FSTOC is even more concerned about the mid and long-term availability of Halon 1301 for all of the enduring uses. Activities that could bring this run-out date sooner include misapplication of the Basel Convention and or local regulations that can prohibit or hinder transboundary shipment of recovered, recycled, reclaimed halon. The deliberate destruction of Halon 31 for carbon credits has the potential to also significantly reduce the quantity available. If you think about it, considering potentially use nominations to create halon as well as destroying it at the same time seems to be counterproductive at best. Parties may wish to consider how to better facilitate the transboundary shipments of recovered halons to address any of these future regional imbalances. Reinforce the message that the Montreal Protocol does not control recovered halons. Emphasise that recovered halons are not hazardous waste under the Basel Convention, and discourage the destruction of halons unless they cannot be economically reclaimed. For example, the European Union has already done that in their latest ozone depleting substance regulations. Finally, looking at emissions of Halon 1301, we have received some additional data for the production of 1301 as a feedstock, and this covers both earlier and later years than we've previously published. The good news is this doesn't change anything. The assumed emission factor of 26% still fits remarkably well. Looking at the graph there, you can see that, and as a reminder, the purple line is obtained by adding the emissions from feedstock to the emissions from the fire suppression bank, and the purple line is a remarkable match to the yellow or green lines, which are the emissions derived from atmospheric measurements. All good. We'd like to know more, however. Therefore, parties may wish to consider requesting the SAP or SAP to provide additional regionalised Halon 1301 emissions estimates to be made available to the TEEP. And parties that use, import or export 1301 as a feedstock may wish to consider more information on the emissions from or the use as a feedstock to the Ozone Secretariat for confidential use by the TEEP. Thank you. I now turn the mic over to Ian Porter.
Thanks, Adam. On behalf of my co-chair, Marta Pisano, I'll now present the MEBTOC overview progress report. And the images there just show you the remaining uses for QPS for agricultural trade internationally. The good news, the finalisation of the methyl bromide phase-out for controlled uses has occurred. But we just remind you that MEBTOC is used for both controlled non-QPS use and exempted non-QPS use and exempted uses for QPS. The baseline of methyl bromide for controlled non-QPS use was 62,000 tonnes and is now almost zero, which is a fantastic global achievement. Well done, parties, industries and everyone. Since 2003, parties submitted over 250 critical use nominations, totalling 18,000 tonnes, up to 18,000 tonnes per year of methyl bromide. Fortunately, no submissions for CUEs were received this year, first time in the last 20 years. However, the only CUE which was exempted last year is still in use for 2025, and it allows Canada to use 2.85 tonnes for the production of strawberry nursery plants in Prince Edward Island, and this appears to be their final CUE. Unfortunately, some media articles and websites still document the use of methyl bromide for controlled uses, and this is of some concern. The continuing use of methyl bromide is now for quarantine and pre-shipment uses, and between 7,000 to 10,000 tonnes annually are used for that purpose. It's important to note that over 85% of the MB use for that purpose is vented directly to the atmosphere and obviously affects the ozone layer. However, alternatives are being increasingly used, in particular phosphine, ethyl formate, practices such as debarking of timber, while a potential alternative, ethane dinitrile, is being registered in many regions and should take on some QPS uses in the future. On the left there you will see what's happening in New Zealand with timber exports, which are a predominant use in QPS. They've reduced their use of methyl bromide by about 90% by uptaking alternatives and using emission controls. The final note there is a change to worker safety exposure limits for methyl bromide from 5 to 1 part per million in several major MB user parties will potentially restrict its use. This slide just gives you an overview of the top 10 key users for methyl bromide in the picture there for QPS, and it gives you the trends over the last, since 2015. So you can see the countries listed on the bottom line there, and each bar represents a year, and you can see the trends. Production currently occurs in 5 parties. They're shown there, with India and US accounting for over 75%. Reported QPS consumption in 2023 globally was just over 7,500 tonnes. This was 25% lower than the average used over the last decade, mainly due to the reductions in New Zealand, also reductions in China, 60%, and Australia, 45% there at the bottom. This just shows you what's happening when you fit the emissions of methyl bromide, the anthropogenic production of methyl bromide, with the atmospheric concentrations. The yellow line there with the blue and dark lines, which are the concentrations. And instead of declining, the atmospheric concentration of methyl bromide has now remained at the same level over the past 3 and a few more years due to the continuing QPS use, which is as to be expected. Recent papers report emissions of methyl bromide from unknown sources that do not match consumption reported under Article 7, and that's estimated to be around 4,000 to 9,000 tonnes per year from 211 to 220, and that is the gap between the flat line in this chart and the 6 on the right-hand side of the chart. That's due to some of the QPS use and some of it to unreported uses. With that, I will pass the presentation to my fellow co-chair, Takeshi, to give the MC Talk presentation.
Thank you. I'm Takeshi Eriguchi, co-chair of MC Talk, presenting on behalf of my co-chairs, with thanks to Nick Campbell. So, in the 2025 progress report, no compelling new information has been identified to report on process agent uses, N-propyl bromide, laboratory and analytical uses, aerosols, and destruction technologies. Updated information is reported on the production and use of controlled substances of feedstocks. Next, please. So I will explain ODS as feedstocks first. In 2023, 17 parties reported using ODS for feedstock, totaling approximately 2 million tons, similar to 2022. 11 of these parties produced ODS for feedstock. Since 2020, there is a large increase HCFCs as feedstock, accounting for HCFC 23-22 at 50%, followed by CTC at 18%, and HCFC 142B at 15%. This figure shows the trend of annual reported production of main ODS for feedstock, with HCFC 22 in blue, CTC in red, and 142B in green. Next, I will talk about HFC as feedstock. 7 parties reported use of HFC as feedstock, totaling approximately 180,000 tons. 6 of these parties reported production of HFCs for feedstock. SFC data reporting started from 2019 for parties that ratified the Kigali Amendment prior to 2020. However, feedstock data reported before 2023 is incomplete due to the timing of reporting obligations. Data confidentiality means TEEP can only provide the estimates of the quantities of SFCs and ODS in the report and the next page. Next slide. So, as I explained, this table shows the reported amount of HFC used as feedstock, and the range is estimated by MCTOC for individual chemicals. Next, please. Yes. So this is the overall annual reported controlled substances for feedstock use of ODS and HFCs from 2002 to 2023. You can see that HFCs are reported for the first time 2023. Thank you. Now I would like to hand over to Ashrey Uttukok on MDI.
Thanks, Takeshi. Morning, everybody. Decision 36/6 asked for the TEEP to report on developments regarding MDIs with low GWP propellants. I have to tell you this is Groundhog Day for me, because 31 years ago, more or less to the very day, I presented at the OEWG in Nairobi, the 10th one, on a new topic for the protocol, which was CFC MDIs. I remember sitting here feeling absolutely terrified. At that time, there was a lack of alternatives, a danger to patient health, and we established an essential use process, you remember, that took, I thought, 5 years, but eventually took 20 years, which is why I'm still here, probably. Next slide, please, Bella. What's happened now? So asthma and COPD affect 600 million people around the world now, really important for patient health. There are new treatment guidelines which emphasize the importance of inhaled treatments, about 70% in pressurized metered dose inhalers and 30% in dry powder inhalers. Clearly, there needs to be an adequate choice and secure supply for patient health. Current PMDIs use pharmaceutical-grade HFC 134A or 227EA propellants, both of which, of course, of high GWP, and both of which may be unavailable after 2030. Next slide. Lower GWP HFC 152A and HFO 1234ZEE are in R&D for PMDIs. We have a much more mature pharmaceutical industry now. A lot more choice for patients. Having 2 lower GWP propellants reduces the risk to patients of a limited inhaler supply during this transition. It's complicated by the regulatory requirements for PMDI approval, which vary especially between the European Union and the US with different criteria, and this is needing additional investment and clinical testing. Having said that, 9 large pharmaceutical companies, 4 of which are in A5 parties, are developing PMDIs containing lower GWP propellants, and the first company had an approval last month in the United Kingdom. Around the world now, there are more than 70 PMDI manufacturers, many of which are SMEs in A5 parties, currently using 134A to supply affordable inhaled treatments, especially salbutamol PMDIs, those blue inhalers that we all see patients carrying. There's a concern that a rapid pace of transition in non-A5 parties, this is going to go very quickly there. A shortage of pharmaceutical grade 134A, patent protection and limited technology transfer could impact the availability and affordability of PMDIs for patients in A5 parties, and this could accentuate the global inequalities in care. Next slide, please, Ron. This is a map that's not in our report, but we thought it might help you. This describes where the distribution of the 70 worldwide inhaler manufacturers. The dark blue bubbles are non-A5 parties, the light blue bubbles are A5 parties, and the size of the bubble is the number of companies in those parties. A half of all inhalers are made in Europe, but around the world there are many other manufacturers, many of which are SMEs, making salbutamol MDIs, which are affordable for patients in A5 parties. Thank you. Omar.
Thank you, Ashley. Next slide, please. For the RTOC progress report, we found that there is no new single component refrigerants approved since 2024. However, there were 27 refrigerant blends that have received designations and classifications from ASHRAE Standard 34 and/or ISO Standard 817. The gradual transition to zero ODP, lower GWP refrigerant, resulted in more hazardous refrigerants being adopted, especially those which are flammable. The increasing amount of risk assessment researched and published on how to address refrigerant leakage and associated hazards. Next slide. There is an increased focus on improving the energy efficiency of frac HP equipment. The energy demand for air conditioning has contributed 80% of the increase in energy-related emissions between 2023 and 2024. So the demand for mechanical cooling will continue to increase with increasing temperatures. However, the adoption of more efficient appliances will partially offset the increased energy use. Talking about sectoral updates, we see global shortage of equipment and expertise for identifying new refrigerants, especially blends, which is hindering progress in many parties, especially Article 5. A new safety standard for refrigerated road transport, EN 17893, has been issued in 2024. The safe use of flammable refrigerants has enabled one refrigerated container shipping line to announce their intent to operate with HFO 1234YF that has a GWP of 1. Industrial heat pumps are replacing boilers which use fossil fuels and has been increasing in China and Europe, and also we see notable increase in the US. In Latin America, industrial heat pump quotations is increasing. HFC 32 variable refrigerant flow air conditioning systems are available from several original equipment manufacturers or OEMs in many regions, including Article 5 parties. However, charge limitations for A2L refrigerants remain a challenge. Also, CO2 or R744 refrigerant was introduced by at least one manufacturer. Chillers used for data center cooling are now a significant portion for the chiller production. The artificial intelligence or AI is starting to be used to optimize chiller plants and building design and operation. And vehicle thermal management beyond just comfort cooling and heating is growing, and at least one OEM has a keen interest in using hydrocarbon 290 for secondary cooling system. With regard to the decision on life cycle refrigerant management, so the decision requests the TEEP to include updated relevant information on LRM in its 2025 and subsequent progress reports, including the 2026 quadrennial assessment report, taking into account discussions at the 36th meeting of the parties to the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer. TEEP has reviewed the information provided, and we found that there is a global increasing focus on LRM. However, the reported reclamation and destruction amounts are small, typically less than 10% of their full potential, which begs the call to action in order to achieve their full potential. However, there is a very important caveat here. The unreported recovery and reuse vary based on market dynamics and fresh refrigerant pricing. We also see growing reclaim trends in EU, US, and China, and also reported destruction in Canada. Since the publication of the progress report, we have received input from 9 parties. And now I hand over back to my co-chair, Bella.
Thanks, Omar. As we did in our 2024 progress report, TEEP in this year's progress report provides updated policy-relevant information related to PFAS and considerations of the potential implications for the sector transitions. The toxicity, bioaccumulation, and persistence of certain PFAS chemicals have led to varied enacted and proposed regulatory controls in some parties and also subnational jurisdictions. They range from limited control of specific chemicals of known toxicity for specific end uses, as well as non-discriminatory bans covering a broader range of chemicals. Definitions incorporated into potential future policies vary between jurisdictions. Emerging PFAS policies and definitions may or may not include the Montreal Protocol controlled chemicals and breakdown products, such as trifluoroacetic acid or TFA and its salts. Definitions range from specifically excluding Montreal Protocol controlled chemicals, as in Delaware's state in the US regulations, as well as broader definitions. For example, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD. The OECD definition of PFAS encompasses a wide range of chemicals, from gases to liquids to solid polymers, including TFA and most commercial HFCs and HFOs. It does exclude several fluorinated gases, such as halons, HCFC 22, HFC 32, 23, 152A, and CF3I. OECD explains the term PFAS does not inform whether a compound is harmful or not, but only communicates that the compounds under this term share the same trait for having a fully fluorinated methyl or methylene carbon moiety. Considering some of the potential implications of this, we report that broad bans could narrow the availability of alternatives as replacements for controlled chemicals under the Montreal Protocol, making transitions away from ODS and HFCs more difficult. There is a risk of possible bans creating uncertainty for companies working to transition from these controlled substances, resulting delays in investment into the alternatives and technologies, and potential delays in transitions or reduced availability to optimize solutions. We report on specific sector considerations. For fire suppression, a consideration there is uncertainty for the cargo compartment replacement and the longer-term reliance on Halon 1301 for enduring uses. Reducing our available alternatives will make the already complex foam-blowing agent selection process more challenging. Propellants that are currently used, under development, or being invested in for pressurized metered dose inhalers could be affected by a broad ban. In the refrigeration and air conditioning sector, broad-ranging restrictions and limited availability of alternatives may increase greenhouse gas emissions by slowing the uptake to lower GWP alternatives, limiting the energy efficiency of medium-sized systems, or slowing the rollout of heat pumps technology. Fluoropolymers could also be included in PFAS definitions and bans. There are many fluoropolymers used in components in all sectors of interest under the Montreal Protocol. For example, in compressors, valves, heat exchangers, flexible seals and coatings, and inhalers, etc. They are also widely used in manufacturing processes and equipment. A ban on fluoropolymers would significantly affect the design of equipment irrespective of the specific chemical used. For example, refrigeration and air conditioning equipment using hydrocarbons, CO2, or ammonia would be affected, as well as those using fluorocarbon refrigerants. This is a continuing issue of importance to parties. TEEP, along with the other panels, have been requested by parties to continue to look into this issue as part of our 2026 assessment reports, and we're coordinating with the other panels to do so. With that, I'll now turn our presentation over to my co-chair, Marta.
Thank you, Bella. If I can have the other one, please. TEEP has been asked through Decision 3520 to provide options for the organization of its own body and its technical options committees. Particularly, TEEP has been requested to provide in its progress report for this meeting options on the organization of the panel and its TOCs, considering the terms of reference and through informed consultations with the co-chairs and members of the committees, and also in consideration of our experience with operating on a trial basis with no ways of organizing our work. To address this decision, TEEP put together a working group composed of 8 members, the 3 TEEP co-chairs, 1 representative from each TOC, and 1 representative of the senior experts. Providing some context about TEEP, it is currently composed of more than 150 experts coming from all around the world who serve on the TEEP and its TOCs as unpaid volunteers. Over 3 decades, TEEP has provided evidence-based information that is a firm foundation for parties to take informed decisions. Its organization and structure has always been sufficiently flexible to enable timely adjustments and amendments to the protocol for emerging challenges and opportunities. The mission and scope of work of the TEEP can be summarized as providing objective, policy-neutral, technical, and economic information which is relevant to the protocol in response to decisions taken by the parties. Also maintaining an expertise, the required expertise on issues related to the global transition or phase out from ODSs and the phase down of HFCs. TEEP is responsible for managing its functioning together with that of its TOCs and temporary subsidiary bodies, adhering to the TEEP terms of reference. And we're also responsible, and I'm pleased to say, in increasing frequency of coordination with the other panels, the EAP and the SAP. Along the years, TEEP has evolved to adjust itself to what is required by parties in response to changes introduced to the protocol. Some highlighting some significant occurrences. I can remind you that the assessment process started in 1989, and in 1991, the TEEP was formed, taking as a basis the former technical and economic assessment panels, which were already in place. In 2001, or 10 years later, experts from the Economics Options Committee were transferred to the TEEP as senior advisors and also to its TOCs. In 2005, a new TOC was formed, the Chemicals TOC, and in 2006, the Medical TOC. This arose from the former solvents, coatings and adhesives and aerosols, sterilants, miscellaneous uses, and CTC talks, and resulted in 6 talks for the TEEP. In 2016, these two committees, the chemicals and medicals, were merged together into the current MC talk to the current 5 TOCs that compose the TEEP. In 2023, the Halons TOC was renamed Fire Suppression TOC to better represent its activity. In responding to this decision, the TEEP took the following approach, given that until the end of 2026 and into 2027, TEEP already has substantial work to complete, and new reports could arise from decisions taken to this period. The substantial work is represented, for example, in the 2026 assessment reports, the synthesis report, progress reports, which we are due to prepare every year, and of course the MLF replenishment study. In view of this, TEEP recommends retaining the current structure so that any future changes considered by parties will come into force in 2027 and onwards. For that period, 2027 and beyond, TEEP proposes options based on the anticipated workload and scope. TEEP endeavors to improve gender balance and regional distribution whilst maintaining the required expertise as usual. We are finding challenges in ensuring a manageable workload as well as maintaining an independent consensus-based approach, and this is becoming more critical in view of the juncture of the ODS phase-out together with the HFC phase-down regimes, the anticipated attrition of membership and relevant expertise, and the lack of support limiting some members' participation in face-to-face meetings. To address these challenges to the long-term viability of TEEP and its TOCs, the panel will need the support of the parties to find sustainable solutions. Currently, TEEP is composed of 22 members, 45% of which come from A5 parties. There are 3 TEEP co-chairs, 14 TOC co-chairs, and 6 senior experts, 6 women and 16 men. Expertise in ODS and HFC sectors, national and international regulations, and functioning history of the Montreal Protocol are in place. We are all independent experts serving on a voluntary basis to produce and present technical and economic information through a consensus process. All members normally attend TEEP, TOC, and Montreal Protocol meetings. This illustrates our current composition. I will not go through each box, but just for you to see, the report contains a lot more detail. And with this, I pass on to my co-chair, Ashley Woodcock, for specific or more elaborate information on options for each of our TOCs. Ashley?
Thanks, Marta. I'm now going to run through the 5 separate technical options committees and produce 4 slides for each one. The slides will be firstly the current membership profile, then a description of the experience, of the expertise of those TOCs, and then present 2 options for structure and function for 2027 and beyond. I would just emphasize that these are not mutually exclusive options. They're a basis for discussion by parties. You'll see some bold text, which is to help me pick out some key topics, and also I hope the interpreters too. Next slide, please, Bella. So first, this is the FDOC. This is their membership profile. You'll see here their gender distribution, the regional distribution. Currently has 20 total members, including 2 co-chairs. Next slide, Bella. FDOC expertise, summarize quickly, everything from foam blowing agents to the foam themselves, their applications, building envelope standards and codes, everything you need to know about foams. Thanks. And these are the options. First of all, option 1. This is to maintain the current FDOC in the current format, including 2 co-chairs. In bold, you'll see on the advantages here, on the pros, that parties could remain informed of the latest developments in foam technology and blowing agents for all application segments and geographies. And we're able to respond to requests from parties in a timely manner. Next slide. This is the FDOC option 2. There is an option to adjust the membership structure to work more remotely with the same, again with 2 co-chairs. You might expect that there'd be a cost reduction for that sort of format. The risk is that members could be demotivated due to less interaction and indeed could leave the FDOC, and a reduced ability to address cross-cutting or emerging issues. Next slide, please, Bella. Now for the FSDOC, Fire Suppression TOC. This is their current membership profile. There are 21 members, including 3 co-chairs. I'll leave that for a few seconds. You can see their gender and regional distribution there. Next slide, please, Bella. The FSDOC is everything you need to know about fires, their suppression and prevention, the agents used, their life cycle management across a range of critical sectors, including, I might say, importantly, civil aviation. And also, I think it also brings an expertise to other areas covered by the TEEP, increasing reliability on flammable alternatives, and therefore they bring safety into our discussions. Next slide, please. And this is the FCTOC option 1, again to maintain the FSDOC as a committee, to have 3 co-chairs and maintain the current size. The advantage, key advantage, is that it can continue to react to emerging issues and adjust its expertise and leadership according to future needs. And they're able to assess any EUNs if they're required in the future. I do think we need to be cautious here, not to appear to be advertising or advocating for EUNs by having an ability to respond to them, if you know what I mean. So it's just that we would still need to be able to if one arose. Next slide. This is option 2. This is an option to reduce the size of the committee with maintaining 2 co-chairs. Maybe an advantage could be a potential signal to civil aviation and for new systems and other enduring uses that halons really are not viable forever. But the disadvantage is it gives impaired ability to respond to decisions in a timely manner, especially if an EUN were to be submitted. And at the bottom on the right there, you can see that we would lose the ability to address cross-cutting issues and institutional knowledge. Moving to methyl bromide TOC. Next slide, please. This is the membership profile. Currently, there are 15 members, including the 2 co-chairs. You can see there the distribution of gender and regions. Sorry, thank you. MBTOC has wide expertise in pests impacting agriculture and international trade, and has provided parties with updated evidence-based information on a wide range of issues for both controlled and exempted MB uses, and a lot of broad expertise detailed there. Next slide. For MBTOC, the first option is to maintain the MBTOC membership at around 15 to 20, including 2 co-chairs. The advantage is that parties remain informed of the latest developments in relation to methyl bromide, ensuring the continuity of expertise and preserving institutional memory, of which there's a lot. New members can be recruited and mentored to provide, mentored to develop, particularly on QPS issues, which allows the induction, if you like, of them into Montreal Protocol processes. And option 2, there's an option to reduce MBTOC membership to perhaps 10 to 12, including 2 co-chairs. This has the advantage of keeping a holding position for controlled uses in case a CUN were to appear, but it does provide reduced capacity to gather, assess and process updated information necessary for reports in a timely manner. And on the specific issue of QPS, it could provide a negative signal with respect to QPS uses that maybe methyl bromide could be used freely. It's not that important, whereas I think we believe the contrary to be true. Now to 2 larger committees. First of all, the MCTOC. The MCTOC has 39 total members, including 3 co-chairs. You can see there the gender and regional distribution. Thank you, Bella. MCTOC expertise essentially falls into 2 groups. Firstly, knowledge about a wide range of chemicals, their manufacturers, their control, the end-of-life management. And secondly, knowledge about pharmaceutical-grade propellants, inhalers, the care of patients with asthma and COPD. Next slide. Option 1 would be to restructure MCTOC, retaining a single committee with 4 co-chairs and about 40 members in 2 formal subcommittees within that committee. One would be aerosols and medical, and the second one would be chemicals. This has the benefit of having subgroups with specialist co-chairs that can enable specific focus on relevant sectors and their technical issues. And the single overarching committee enables joint review of cross-cutting issues. There is a degree of management complexity with a large TOC like this. Managing a large TOC with diverse and separate technical issues is complex and time-consuming. MC-TOC option 2 would be to split into 2 separate TOCs. One, aerosols medical with 2 co-chairs, and chemicals TOC we suggest with 3 co-chairs, each with about 20 members. This has the advantage of enabling greater focus, especially in chemicals with this large range of diverse topics, and it allows strengthening of aerosols MDI TOC to manage an expected short to medium workload, which will increase and then probably diminish after about a decade, we think. Could be disbanded. This would involve some initial disruption and perhaps loss of focus on the cross-cutting issues, and would require forward planning to minimize and to avoid any gaps between the two. Next slide, please. Lastly, we come to the options for refrigeration and air conditioning, the RTOC. This is the current membership profile, 43 members, including the 4 co-chairs. Next slide. RTOC has tremendous broad expertise, as do the other TOCs, but on this case, on refrigerants, the equipment, but in addition, a plethora really of cross-cutting issues: energy efficiency, sustainability, life cycle analysis of refrigerants, modeling particularly, which model across the 2 sectors. And this is the way the RTOC's been functioning for the last period. Next slide. So option 1, to be clear, is to retain a single RTOC, but to restructure inside the RTOC to focus on the cross-cutting issues across the top, if you like, with 2 application subcommittees, one on comfort, cooling and heating, and one on cold chain and other applications. The advantage would be this enables the joint consideration and consensus of all these difficult cross-cutting issues. I described them before: energy efficiency, LRM, PFAS, and so on. But it allows the technical subgroups to meet on refrigeration, cold chain, and ACHP space cooling. We also think this supports succession planning for the co-chairs and recruitment efforts. There is a degree of management complexity. Managing a large TOC with diverse and separate technical issues is complex and time-consuming. And lastly, our TOC option 2 is to split the RTOC into 2 TOCs, one for comfort, cooling and heating, and a second for the cold chain and other applications. Each would have 20 members and 2 co-chairs. The advantage would mean that it would be more manageable for the co-chair's workload, and the potential for easier consensus within those TOCs. But the disadvantage is that cross-cutting topics will be duplicated, handled by both committees, lead to wasted effort and a serious risk of a loss of a single consensus on these important topics. In addition, several end-use applications have started to blur the boundary between the 2 sides, if you like, with coverage across the middle. And with that presentation, I now just hand on to Bella to finish, please.
Yes, mindful I'm under time pressure. I'm keeping you from your lunch. We had a few additional considerations in our response to Decision 3520. This is focused on the organization and functioning of the TEEP. With regard to senior experts, we would move in the future to what the TOR recommends in terms of 2 to 4 senior experts, fulfilling expertise not covered by the TEEP or TOC co-chairs. To manage that workload of our experts serving in those positions, they would not serve on TOCs concurrently, and this would reduce the size of the panel, as well as the travel support needed. We reported establishing a standing TEEP working group on the MLF replenishment, just because that is a routine periodic study requested of the TEEP. and this would ensure that updated relevant data information, especially on new decisions, are considered throughout the intervening triennium. It would make the effort to do the requested study more manageable, given the tight deadlines between receiving the terms of reference from parties, forming a task force, and then delivering a study to the next open-ended working group meeting, and potentially the supplementary study for the meeting of the parties. And we hope this would address parties' interest for greater transparency of our funding model and approach. We also report to parties the challenges TEEP foresees currently as well as in the future. For TEEP and for the parties, maintaining the needed expertise and recruiting new volunteers becomes very important. We need to retain the technical expertise. We need experts who are able to work independently, confidentially, and work towards consensus and have the available necessary time, energy, and ability to write clearly. Some talks have already experienced substantial attrition of key members, both through retirement and some because of loss of support for their actual participation. So we're experiencing keenly some of this loss of expertise for those talks. We report to parties that some members have been unable to travel to face-to-face meetings for various reasons. This is very important for our consensus-based process to be able to meet and debate and discuss. Many non-A5 experts find it increasingly difficult to obtain funding support for travel from their sponsoring organizations. So as we've made in other requests, we ask parties to consider how to assess the TEEP in ensuring that we have independence in our products. We continue to have that. The full participation of TEEP and TOC members in its process, such as providing travel support to members, irrespective of their status. Thank you very much for your attention. I conclude our presentation.
Thank you very much. On behalf of all parties, I would like to thank the TEEP and the talks once again for your hard work and excellent reports containing extremely useful and valuable information. I wish to thank all of you for your commitment, dedication, hard work, volunteerism in support of the advancement of the Montreal Protocol. As indicated in the report and mentioned in the presentation we just heard, over the past decade, the TEEP, its talks, and temporary subsidiary bodies have produced a total of 94 reports, delivering at least 4 and as many as 18 reports in 1 year. This is a significant amount of work that has been a key contribution to the work of parties. I note that we have encroached on our lunch hour, or hours, sorry, and I propose that we break for lunch and resume the Q&A session after lunch. But before we break, I would invite the Secretariat to make a few announcements. Secretariat?
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Distinguished delegates, the Secretariat would like to make the following announcement regarding daily subsistence allowance. DSA payment for the Article 5 parties funded by the Secretariat will take place starting today from 1 to 3 p.m. at the DSA desk located outside ESCAP Hall on your right. Please bring your boarding pass and passport with you. Additional important information, including the United Nations Meetings Code of Conduct to prevent harassment, details of the Secretariat's environmental management system, and the location of amenities such as cafeteria, the bank, ATMs, first aid, and the prayer room will be displayed on the screens on levels 1 and 2 near the escalators throughout the week. Thank you.
And thank you, Esther. We will now adjourn the plenary for lunch. The schedule for the side events is indicated on the screen. If you have time, you're encouraged to attend the side events. We will resume at 3 p.m. and begin substantive discussions on our question and answer segment led by my distinguished co-chair, Annie. So do enjoy your lunch and we will resume at 3. Thank you.